Peterborough, England, July 18, 2020. The summer morning is deceptively ordinary. The sun glints off rows of terraced houses. Birds chirp. A girl, 17, freckled, artistic, walks out of her grandparents' home and climbs into a car. Her stepfather, Scott Walker, waits behind the wheel. She doesn't know this is the last moment she'll ever be seen alive. Inside the car, there's tension, thick and silent. Scott grips the steering wheel. Bernadette's bag sits on her lap. Her fingers fidget. Just 2 days ago, she made a decision that changed everything. She told the truth. She told her mother that Scott had been sexually abusing her for years. And what did her mother do? She didn't cry. Didn't call the police. She called her daughter a liar. Threatened her. Told her to shut her mouth, or else. Now, Bernadette sits beside the men who's hurt her most, forced into silence by the one person who was supposed to protect her. Her mother. Sarah. Scott's phone goes dark at exactly 11:23 a.m. 91 minutes vanish into a black hole. When the phone pings back to life at 12:54 p.m., the first call Scott makes is to Sarah. 9 minutes long. The content of that conversation. No one knows for sure. But Bernadette is never seen again. Bernadette Walker was born in Peterborough, Cambridgeshire, in 2002. From the outside, she seemed like any ordinary teenager, a bright, creative soul with a love for photography and an independent streak that sometimes made her seem older than her years. She lived in a crowded household in Peterborough, a modest city with both vibrant community life and pockets of poverty and isolation. Bernadette had 6 siblings, and life at home was busy, loud, and often chaotic. Her mother, Sarah Walker, had a complex history herself. She had given birth to Bernadette as a teenager and later entered a long-term relationship with Scott Walker, not Bernadette's biological father, but the men who would raise her. Scott, a former Army reservist, lived an unremarkable life to most. To neighbors, he was quiet. Polite. He helped around the house. But beneath that surface, Scott held a sinister control over the household, one that would only become visible after it was too late. From a young age, Bernadette had lived with a growing discomfort that she didn't fully understand. As a child, she couldn't always explain it, the way Scott looked at her, the lingering touches, the private moments that made her stomach churn. As she grew older, the abuse became more overt and more traumatic. She began to document her thoughts in diaries and confide small pieces of her truth to trusted friends. But at home, she felt trapped. Sarah, her mother, appeared emotionally unavailable, consumed with her role as mother of 7 and perhaps unwilling to see the storm brewing right under her nose. Over the years, Bernadette began to find her voice. At Peterborough College, she threw herself into photography, capturing street scenes, abstract patterns, quiet expressions of emotion in strangers' faces. Art became a safe space, a place where she could express things she couldn't say out loud. But the weight of her secret, the years of sexual abuse by Scott, was growing heavier. On July 16, 2020, Bernadette finally broke her silence. She told her mother everything. The details of what Scott had done to her, repeatedly, for years. It was a moment of incredible bravery. For any child to accuse a parent or step-parent of abuse is terrifying. But for Bernadette, the betrayal would be even worse. Her mother didn't believe her. Not only did Sarah dismiss the allegation, she turned on her daughter. Bernadette wrote about it in her diary later that day, her words raw and scathing, told my mom about my dad and the abuse. She called me a liar and threatened to kill me if I told the police. That one entry revealed everything, the abuse, the disbelief, and the danger. Despite that chilling threat, Bernadette didn't run away immediately. Instead, she went to her grandparents' house, perhaps to escape the toxic environment, perhaps to find safety. She stayed there overnight. On the morning of July 18, 2020, her stepfather Scott Walker arrived to pick her up. She left the house with him. The sun was shining. She wore casual clothes and carried her rucksack, the same one that would later be found abandoned in a garage. She climbed into the car, the door closed behind her, and she was never seen again. Between 11:23 a.m. and 12:54 p.m., Scott's mobile phone was turned off. 91 minutes. In that black void, prosecutors later argued, Scott killed Bernadette. Likely in the car. Possibly strangled. There was no trace of her after that moment, no calls, no CCTV, no witnesses. When his phone came back on, the first person he contacted was Sarah. The call lasted more than 9 minutes. Prosecutors believed it was during that call that he told Sarah what he had done, and together, they began weaving the lie. Later that day, Scott told Sarah, and then the police, that Bernadette had jumped out of the car while they were driving down Skaters Way and ran off. He said she had seemed upset, distraught, that he tried to follow her but lost sight of her. But no one saw a girl running. No CCTV captured her. There were no footprints, no personal items dropped, no trace. Just Scott's word. And Sarah, her mother, echoed the story. They didn't report her missing for 3 days. On July 21st, they went to the police. They described her as a runaway teen, upset about some argument, likely hiding out with friends. It was a vague, nonchalant report. Scott seemed unemotional. Sarah described her daughter's behavior as erratic. But behind the scenes, Sarah was already doing something far more chilling. She was pretending Bernadette was still alive. From her own phone and using Bernadette's accounts, Sarah sent fake messages to herself. Text supposedly from Bernadette claimed she was alive, just needed time, was hiding from everyone. "I'm safe," one message read. "I'll come back soon." But digital forensics showed Bernadette's phone had been inactive since July 18th. The messages had come from Sarah's phone. It was a desperate attempt to confuse police, friends, and family, and it worked for a time. Even Bernadette's friends were fooled at first. Her close friend Warren Naylor received a message from Bernadette's Instagram account saying she had lied about the abuse. But something about the tone didn't feel right. It didn't sound like her. It felt off, robotic, unnatural. Deep down, Warren knew. His friend wasn't sending those messages. Something had happened. In September, the police began to zero in on Scott and Sarah. GPS records revealed that Scott hadn't gone directly to Bernadette on the morning of July 18th. Instead, he went to a garage in Walton, owned by his parents. He returned there multiple times in the days and weeks after her disappearance. When police searched the unit, they found Bernadette's rucksack. Inside, her photography supplies. Her diary. Her final words. On September 14, 2020, both Scott and Sarah Walker were arrested. Scott was charged with murder. Sarah with perverting the course of justice. But without a body, the trial would depend on circumstantial evidence and the strength of Bernadette's own words. At the 2021 trial, the courtroom heard from her friends, teachers, and investigators. The most powerful testimony came not from any witness, but from Bernadette herself, through the pages of her diary. Her handwriting. Her truth. Her cry for help. It was the heart of the case. Scott remained silent. He never said where Bernadette's body was. Never offered remorse. Never gave the family closure. The presiding judge, Justice McGowan, addressed this with particular anger. "Cruelest of all," she said, "it's likely to mean some members of her family and friends will go on hoping she might be alive and might someday come back into their lives." Scott Walker was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 32 years. Sarah Walker received 6 years in prison for her role in helping cover up the crime. In December 2023, while serving time at HM Prison Full Sutton, Scott Walker died in custody. He never revealed the location of Bernadette's body. To this day, Bernadette remains missing, her physical presence erased, her voice stolen, but her truth preserved through her courage and her final writings. The case remains one of the most disturbing examples in recent memory of how abuse can be hidden in plain sight, and how a child can be silenced not only by violence, but by the willful blindness of those meant to protect her. Her story is now used in training sessions for child protection professionals, and her name is often cited alongside reforms like Helen's Law, which increases penalties for murderers who withhold the locations of victims' remains. Bernadette Walker was brave. She told the truth. She deserved to be believed. And that concludes today's heartbreaking case, the tragic murder of Bernadette Walker, a brave young girl whose voice was silenced by the very people meant to protect her. Her body was never found, but her truth continues to echo through courtrooms and conversations about abuse, justice, and the devastating consequences of silence. If this case moved you, please share Bernadette's story. Awareness matters. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another true crime deep dive. Let us know in the comments what justice means when there's no closure. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, every voice matters.